Hey, this is the road to 2019. Every Friday night, we've been gathering for several months now to take stock of all the events of the week and to try and see what possible impact they could have in the big general election that is happening in 2019. Now, if that's the theme, this has obviously been a week on steroids. And if I just start listing all the possible things that have happened this week that could have some bearing on the general elections, well, it could take us a long time. So I'm just going to summarize by talking about some of the major issues that have happened. As always, the good news, the bad news, political developments, and index of opposition unity, the regular features on this show. Let me start off with the good news for the government, good news for the BJP. And yes, there was a lot of good news also this week, despite what happened in the assembly election results. So good news, number one, Supreme Court says there is no proof of any wrongdoing in the Rafale deal. And in fact, in the wording of that order, it makes a series of statements that makes people wonder whether that's it, whether the Rafale issue has gone out completely for the general elections. We'll discuss that later here. UK court orders Vijay Mallya's extradition, another major development that happened, which the government would be happy about, which they can talk about it. And Augusta accused Christian Missil has been extradited to India. And I'm just trying to count the number of big things that have happened this week. Wholesale inflation at its lowest since August. So at least 4 major pieces of good news for the government, and I'm going to ask everyone what impact these could have. Bad news for the government, and again there was a whole bunch of things that happened. BJP loses 3 key heartland states to the Congress party. 3-0 in the heartland. By the way, the BJP didn't actually get anything in Telangana or Mizoram either. So all around bad day. What's the impact of that going to be? Then you have the shock resignation of RBI Governor Urjit Patel. What is this going to signal? More grist to the mill of the opposition to say institutions are under attack? Well, perhaps. And, well, the opposition is not entirely giving up on Rafale just yet. You've seen the Congress party, at any rate, coming out and saying, well, it was never supposed to be a Supreme Court issue. We want a JPC. That should happen. All right, political developments very quickly. Well, we know what's happened in the assembly elections, but interestingly, after that, the Congress seems to have gone with experience, with the old warhorses edging out Jyotiraditya Scindia and Sachin Pilot. And we're going to see what exactly happens in Chhattisgarh. TRS landslide in Telangana could mean the regional parties are going to be the all-important factors in 2019. Keep an eye for all of them. And the BJP's, of course, now got into a whole series of meetings to try and see what strategy it's going to adopt after the election rout. Index of alliance unity, which is the 4th thing that we track every week. So 21 opposition parties had met in Delhi. BSP skipped it. But shortly after that, very promptly, both the BSP and the SP came forward to say, we're going to support the Congress party in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, make sure nothing happens. But there were other alliance issues, of course, which we should not forget this week. Upendra Kushwaha quitting the NDA, and this was before the election results came in. So, you know, he went on to say, if I'd quit afterwards, they'd have thought that I was, deserting a ship, but I quitted before. And last but not least, parties like the TRS and the TMC, there's some reports coming that they're trying to form some sort of a separate front. So the revival of the third front, is that going to come back to be a major factor in 2019? So I told you, lots happening this week, and that's why we have an absolute power-packed panel right with us here in the studio. We're going to take all 7 of these issues and tell us exactly what this means. By the end of this show, we're going to be able to predict exactly how many seats the BJP is going to get, right? So Lord Miknath Desai with us. Desh Ratan is an old friend of ours on the show. Sagarika Ghosh, great to have you back with us. Ami Ben Yagnik, Rajya Sabha MP of the Congress Party, is going to tell us what she thinks is going to happen. Kota Nirima, in particular, lots which is happening in the rural area and the rural sectors. We'll see if there's some broader trends that we should be picking from. Amitabh Dubey, political analyst, here with us as well. Right, I'm going to dive into the assembly results and what that may or may not mean. But let's just start with the very first item that I began this thing with, which was Rafale, and whether this is going to essentially, this is one of the issues. If you see that grid which we've been bringing up for several weeks and what the major issues was, the opposition was always going to talk about institutions and was going to talk about Rafale. Now, can it still do that? Prashant Bhushan now joining us for more on that. Prashant, you, of course, one of the people who's been very active in the court after what the Supreme Court has said. I don't want to right now retry whatever the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court's passed the verdict. I'm just trying to think of the implications of where this goes from here. There could be a review petition in the Supreme Court, or do you think the opposition is essentially now going to take up the matter basically to say let's go for the JPC?
Yeah, so there would be a review petition because there are several major factual errors in the judgment. For example, it says that there is a CAG report which has gone into pricing, etc., which is totally false. I don't know where the court got that from. They have also said that Dassault chose its own offset partner because they were in negotiation with this company or its parent company since 2012. That is also totally false. This was a 12-day-old company of Anil Ambani. It had nothing to do with the earlier Mukesh Ambani Reliance company with whom Dassault may have been in negotiation. They have also said that the Air Force officers who came to the court told the court about the process of negotiation as well as the pricing things, which they did not. They were not asked that, nor did they do so. But quite apart from that, you see, the judgment does not address any of the issues that we have raised and seems to be going into this issue as if we were seeking cancellation of the contract. We were only seeking an investigation into the matter. And they have not dealt with any of these things themselves. On pricing, they say, well, government says this,
Prashant,
and we can't go into pricing. This is good enough for us.
But Prashant, in retrospect, what the Congress party has come out and said is essentially, you know, it is not necessarily the domain of the courts to look at every matter. And they've said, therefore, the correct forum is not to go back to the court, either in a review petition or anything else, to have a JPC, because this matter needs to be examined by Parliament, not necessarily by the courts.
You see, this matter can be examined and should be examined by the JPC, by the CAG, but it also needs a criminal investigation. Our complaint had pointed out that there are many facts and circumstances which suggest that offences under the Prevention of Corruption Act have been committed, and the law says that when you make such a complaint, then an FIR has to be registered and investigation has to be made. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court went on the basis as if we were seeking cancellation of the contract. But this judgment is not going to make these issues go away, because it has not dealt substantively with the issues that we had raised in our petition, with all the facts and circumstances which we had pointed out, which contradicted the government's version. They have just followed the government's version hook, line and sinker,
you know, it is the Supreme Court
with our rebuttal of that version, which was based on facts.
Okay, but Prashant, now that you've gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court Supreme Court is the apex court, is the highest court in the land, you can say that you agree with the judgment or you don't agree with the judgment, but now that they have made a judgment, from a legal point of view, all you can do is file a review petition, and there's not necessarily that much. What are the chances that a review petition in this case will actually be entertained? I mean, if you go to a lower court, then you have the possibility of appeals, but once the Supreme Court has said this, what more can be possibly done?
No, only a review petition can be filed, which goes before the same judges. But the fact of the matter is that the facts which have come out, and facts are coming out every day, new facts are coming out every day. Today, the Caravan magazine has published a story about how the benchmark price was increased by the Cabinet Committee on Security, headed by the Prime Minister himself, in violation of the rules, from 5.2 billion to 8.2 billion for this 36 aircraft deal. And this was done despite the fact that the three relevant officers of the price negotiating committee, who were expert on prices, had said that the benchmark price should remain $5.2 billion. But yet unilaterally the Cabinet Committee on Security increased it to $8.2 billion. So therefore, there are many facts which are coming out. Facts are likely to come out, more facts are likely to come out from France also. So therefore, this is certainly, the Supreme Court judgment certainly does not put a quietus to this issue.
All right, Prashant, thanks a lot for joining us with that perspectives. And you said you are going to go ahead and file a review petition.
Yes, yes, certainly.
All right. Prashant Bhushan, thank you so much for joining us. Prashant Bhushan saying that he is going to be filing a review petition on this entire Rafale matter. Now, let's go through that entire list of possible issues that have happened this week and throw it to you. First, Rafale. Sagarika, is Rafale now over as a political issue, or is it not? Actually, before I come to you, I should actually ask Amiben that question. Is that it, you think, for Rafale? This is something which Rahul Gandhi has invested a lot of personal attention, personal energy to. You're now seeing the BJP coming out and saying he should apologize. Was it the wrong issue to have picked up? Was it a mistake to have allowed this to go to the Supreme Court? What?
Not at all. It is the rightest of the right issue that has been taken up by the Congress and Rahul Gandhi ji. Supreme Court, of course, we are not the petitioners. And as you said, that the request by the petitioners was to register a criminal offence because it is under the Corruption Act. What we are asking is, what kind of a deal was it that you have hidden it from the country, you have snatched it away from HAL, who has been having a track record of manufacturing aircrafts? What was so important that the Honorable Prime Minister had to take the person who was owning the company 8 days old with him to
I'm saying
friends?
we've heard all the charges, but now we've also seen what the Supreme Court has said about it.
It is for the country to know, and it is a very important issue which is definitely affecting the country and the security of the country.
So you will keep on raising it?
Of course, we will keep on raising it, and we'll see that it reaches a logical end.
Lord Meghnad Desai, you think this issue will have much bearing anymore? Because now every time the Supreme Court goes to the people and says Rafale, the BJP will come back and say, hang on, this is Supreme Court has just said this in no uncertain terms.
Exactly. You know, I think as a political issue, it's sort of dead. And also another thing, if you tell people 50,000 crores have been stolen, it has no impact on anybody because the number is too large. You're not relating to the MSP or something like that, which they can understand. They can understand sums of money which relate to their lives. You say 50,000 crores chala gaya.
Not necessarily. I mean, let's rewind back 5 years ago.
Okay.
One of the major factors that I think led to that entire surge against the UPA was because scam. There was scam after scam was being spoken about. 2G, 1,76,000 crore. Those were giant numbers. But you know, potentially this could have been emotive. But actually, let me just get everyone else's views on it. So, you know, one view is that it will not relate. Deshat?
See, even this issue prior to Supreme Court had no traction with the voters. It did not even reflect in the 3 assembly elections because a lot of surveys people did not even respond to it. People didn't know what is this Rafale all about. So subsequent to this, I think Congress would be flogging a dead horse.
Sagarika, one point, if I can just elaborate on that further. One point was that Rafale may have prevented the BJP from talking about anti-corruption as a major achievement of the government because Rafale would have been hanging in there. Now, theoretically, after the events of this week, that becomes a potent weapon which is back in the BJP's arsenal because they can say, Rafale, the Supreme Court has said ABC, Malia, we're getting back, Michelle, we got back.
Absolutely. But, you know, I'd just like to pick up from what he was saying and what you were hinting at as well, is that first of all, I didn't find any resonance of Rafale on the ground. I traveled extensively in Madhya Pradesh. I traveled extensively in Rajasthan. There's no resonance of Rafale. You know, when farmers are laboring under distress, under loans, under MSP, they're not bothered about Rafale. But I would like to slightly disagree with Lord Meghnad Desai there that it's dead as a political issue because I think it has now entered into the political realm. I think the focus is away from actually the issue of Rafale. I think the Congress has demonstrated that after the Supreme Court judgment, whether the Supreme Court judgment has given a clean chit to the government or not, they are going to rake up the fact that there was a CAG report mentioned in the judgment. Where is that CAG report? Rahul Gandhi's come out all guns blazing at the press conference saying we are not going to go back on this. Rafale is still an issue for us. But the BJP, as you rightly point out, has a handle. And plus, the Congress is never on a strong wicket when it comes to corruption. So they have the pressure of Augusta Westland as well, as you pointed out. Christian Michel is here. So Augusta Westland, they have that pressure on the Congress. So I think it's all going to get more and more about politics. Vikram, from now it's politics, politics, politics.
Yeah, but
and I
what
think
in politics is what I'm trying to figure out.
Entered into the political domain, and I think the Congress is not going to back down, because the Rahul Gandhi's single point agenda has been Rafale, and he's talking about it everywhere.
Amitabh, let me get some other views in before I come back for a second opinion from some of you. Amitabh, there is any political issue or not?
No, I think the BJP will certainly use the Supreme Court judgment as a political talking point, as it's entitled to do. But I think the issue of Rafale has caught on. It may not be the #1 issue when there are so many other issues. But I think the slogan that everyone objects to, Chaukidar Chor Hai, I think that is known across the country. I've seen it, I've traveled in Chhattisgarh, and people are quite familiar with that slogan, and therefore they understand that there is something going on. And I think the resonance of the issue in political terms comes from the evasions of the government, not necessarily from whether the charges have been proved or not. So the government first says we'll give the price out, and then it doesn't. The government says the price was reduced in the New Deal. Turns out it actually went up. So it's these kinds of questions that create the murkiness that bothers voters. So nothing is going to be proved one way or the other, but questions are raised based on the narrative.
Lord Desai, you wanted to say something before we jump to the next of the items on our agenda?
I just want to remind people that Beaufort's counted only because a ministry in the cabinet resigned on that. Somebody from inside said Beaufort is bad. Here, there's no such thing.
You know, when the verdict first came out, the Supreme Court verdict came out this morning, I thought this issue is dead. The Congress overplayed its hand. This is the limits of political adventurism. It's not going to go very far, and the Congress is now stuck with a dead duck. But then when the various factual errors of the judgment began to come out, and when I saw the Congress's press conference that Rahul Gandhi held, it became clear that clearly the Congress is not going to back down, even though there is, as Meghna Desai saying, no smoking gun.
So can I just ask you, I mean, the interesting point which comes out in this is it worth the Congress's while almost to double down on this particular issue, or is there enough that they have seen elsewhere which they might want to say, all right, let's not spend too much attention on this. There are other bigger issues that we can raise, you know, rural distress and the like.
Yeah, I absolutely hope so. You know, because I think I agree with the panel here that there is very little resonance as far as Rafale is concerned.
Ground, very little.
They may be, yeah, absolutely. I think the details are a little fuzzy when it comes to the voters, but I agree with Amitabh also. There is a resonance to those slogans, which I think if the Congress can innovatively think of those things to connect with the voters. But I think they would be well advised to focus on rural distress. You know, because every second, you know, farmer in this country
and as I turn to the assembly elections, we will look at some of the figures and statistics, including how the Congress has done in rural areas and non-rural areas. I mean, Ben, doubling down, you still think that's the way the Congress is going to go on Rafale, or will it find?
Of course, we need to find out and get to the root of it. And if there is so much transparency, and if they have nothing to hide, I am unable to understand why they can't come before the JPC. And you ask for the source. The BJP Adhyaksh, he sits in the parliament. He can very well get up and say, yes, we are ready for a JPC. What is there to hide? So the people are wondering what is there to hide.
Okay.
Let me now quick. You know, JPC is not formed for fishing and rowing inquiries. You've got to show something in parliament. Then only. You don't form a JPC to unearth evidences. You've got to show something. I think Lord Meghna Desai would agree.
It's not that there are no questions that are around. There are questions that are around.
It is not about questions. You've got to show something. You don't raise questions in air and then say there should be fishing and rowing JPC. That is not the way it functions. Let us be very clear on it.
We've had JPCs in the past on a number of
yes, but something is to be shown. Something is to be shown, put on record. Therefore, have a debate in parliament.
Why are they evading?
Yeah, why not?
The question before the people is why are they evading?
The interesting question which might come up for the BJP is, as she said, what is there to hide? Why don't you have a JPC? That'll be
have a debate. Why not have a debate on it?
Okay,
and things would be very clear whether you have something or not.
Let me ask the following. If there is a writ petition before the Supreme Court, can the government say, right now it's sub judice, we're not going to do anything about that, and Supreme Court may take its own sweet time? It doesn't have to
Supreme-
hurry anything.
That's a review
Review
petition.
petition.
Actually,
Not
that's
a
an
review
interesting.
petition.
Review petition.
That's an interesting point.
That's an
Maybe
interesting
one
point.
reason why the
Yeah.
Congress may say, please don't file a review petition,
Exactly.
because
They can
then
say,
the
no.
matter becomes
Yeah.
subject.